The great station hung in space like a metal moon. It was bigger than most cities, and home to thousands of aliens from across the galaxy. This was the Galactic Council Station, where the three most powerful races in the galaxy met to decide the fate of billions. Ambassador Zethvar walked through the long hallways of the station. His green scales caught the light as he moved. Like all Zephyrians, he was tall and strong, with sharp teeth and yellow eyes that missed nothing. He had been the voice of his people for over 200 years, and he was good at his job. The Zephyrians controlled 1/3 of the galaxy. They were warriors first and everything else second. Their ships were fast and their weapons were deadly. For 3,000 years, they had fought and traded with the other two great powers. It was a dance they all knew well. Zethvar stopped at a large window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, his scouts had found something strange. Energy readings that made no sense. Ships that appeared and vanished like ghosts. His people were worried, and when Zephyrians worried, the galaxy trembled. On the other side of the station, Queen Zarathis felt the fear of her children. The Hive Collective was not like other races. They were one mind in millions of bodies. What one saw, they all saw. What one felt, they all felt. And right now, they all felt afraid. The Queen's body was massive, part insect and part machine. Tubes and wires connected her to the station's computers. Through them, she could speak to any of her children across the galaxy in an instant. But lately, some of her children had gone silent. They had seen something in the dark spaces between. Stars, something that should not exist. Her warriors had reported ships with no energy signatures. Vessels that moved without making any sound or heat. They appeared from nowhere, watched for a while, then disappeared again. The Hive had ruled space for thousands of years, but they had never seen anything like this. The third member of the council was harder to see. The Whisper was a being of pure energy, floating in a special chamber filled with strange gas. The Voidborn had no solid bodies. They lived in the spaces between atoms, in the dark matter that filled the universe. They were old, older than the other races, and they knew secrets that others could not understand. The Whisper spoke without words, its thoughts flowing directly into the minds of the other two. The third arm stirs. It said, "The dead zone awakens. Something comes from the place where nothing should live." Zethvar turned from the window. "What do you mean?" "That section of the galaxy is empty. Our scouts have checked it many times." "Your scouts see only what they expect to see," the Whisper replied. "But the darkness has eyes, and those eyes are watching us." Queen Zarathis shifted in her chamber. "My children have seen the silent ships. They come from the direction of the dead zone. But how can anything live there? There are no worlds, no resources, no reason for life to exist. The three leaders had ruled the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten what it was like to face the unknown. The Zephyrians, the Hive, and the Voidborn had divided space between them. They fought sometimes, but these were carefully planned. Wars. They traded with each other and made deals that kept the balance of power stable. Other races existed in the galaxy, but they were small and weak. The three great powers made sure of that. They gave the smaller races just enough technology to be useful, but never enough to be dangerous. It was a system that had worked for thousands of years, but now something was wrong. The reports were coming in from the outer edges of their territory. Ships that moved without making noise. Weapons that fired without creating heat. And strangest of all, the energy readings suggested these ships were using technology that was both incredibly advanced and surprisingly simple. Far from the council station, in a part of space that the galaxy had written off as dead, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The EDF Sovereign was humanity's greatest achievement, a battleship that had taken 50 years to build in complete secrecy. Jake was a career military man, like his father and grandfather before him. He had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. Earth's first journey to the stars was not going to be a peaceful exploration mission. The human race had learned long ago that the universe was not a safe place. The Sovereign was different from any ship the galaxy had ever seen. It was built like a fortress, with thick armor and powerful weapons. But it was also fast and smart, filled with the best technology that human science could create. Most importantly, it carried 2,000 of Earth's finest people. "Captain," called out Commander Lisa Parker from her station, "we're getting ready to make the jump. All systems are green." Lisa was the ship's expert on alien life. She had spent years studying the few signals that Earth had picked up from other worlds. She knew that somewhere out there, other races were waiting. She hoped they would be friendly, but she was ready if they were not. "Dr. Chun, are your sensors ready?" Jake asked. Dr. Alex Chun looked up from his instruments. "All set, Captain. We'll know everything about whatever we find out there." Alex was the ship's chief scientist. He had helped design many of the Sovereign systems. He was excited about the chance to study alien technology, but he was also worried about what they might find. The bridge was quiet as the crew prepared for humanity's first step into the larger galaxy. They had no idea that their arrival would change everything. They did not know that 3 ancient powers were already hunting for them. They could not imagine that their simple human technology would terrify beings who had ruled space for thousands of years. "All hands, prepare for hyperspace." "Jump," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "We're about to make history." The Sovereign's engines began to glow with a strange blue light. Space around the ship started to bend and twist. In a flash of light, the ship disappeared from Earth's solar system and began its journey to the stars. Behind them, Earth continued its quiet orbit around the sun. The planet looked peaceful and small, but it had just sent its children to meet the galaxy. And the galaxy was not ready for what humanity would bring to the stars. The EDF Sovereign, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of what humans would later learn was Zephyrian territory. The transition was smooth, much smoother than the alien races would have expected. Human technology worked differently than theirs, combining advanced physics with practical engineering in ways that seemed impossible. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the stars that no human had ever seen before. They were beautiful, but he knew they might also be dangerous. "All stations report," he ordered. "Navigation is good, Captain," called out Commander Steve Adams. "We're exactly where we planned to be." "Sensors are active," added Dr. Alex Chun. "I'm picking up some interesting readings about 2 light hours away. Looks like artificial structures." "Weapons systems are ready," reported Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor. The young tactical officer had trained for years for this moment, but he hoped they would not need to fight. Jake nodded. "Commander Parker, try to establish communication with whoever is out there. Use the standard greeting protocols." Lisa Parker activated the ship's communication array. She had spent months preparing messages in mathematics and simple physics, hoping that any intelligent species would understand. "Broadcasting on all frequencies, Captain. If anyone is listening, they'll know we want to talk." What the humans did not know was that a Zephyrian patrol fleet was already moving toward them. Admiral Kexmore had been hunting for the mysterious ships for weeks. When his sensors detected the strange energy signature, he was sure he had found what he was looking for. Kexmore was an experienced warrior, but he was also afraid. The reports from other patrols had been disturbing. Ships that appeared without warning, watched for a while, then vanished. Technology that his people could not understand. He had orders to capture or destroy anything he found. The Admiral's fleet consisted of 12 ships, each one a deadly weapon designed for war. Zephyrian vessels were sleek and fast, covered in energy shields that could stop most attacks. Their weapons fired beams of pure energy that could melt through metal in seconds. "Admiral," called out his sensor officer, "we have found the target. It's bigger than our largest warships. But the design is strange. It looks like it's made of metal and ceramic, not the energy-based materials we use." Kexmore studied the images on his screen. The alien ship was indeed strange. It had a solid, heavy look that seemed primitive compared to Zephyrian technology. But something about it made him nervous. It looked like it was built for war. "What about weapons?" he asked. "That's the strange part, sir. I'm not detecting any energy weapons at all. But there are what look like kinetic launchers all over the hull. And the armor is incredibly thick." Kexmore made a decision that would change galactic history. Instead of trying to communicate with the strange ship, he chose to attack first. In his mind, anything that came from the dead zone had to be a new weapon created by his enemies. "All ships, prepare to attack," he ordered. "We'll disable their engines and capture the vessel for study." On the Sovereign, Dr. Chan's sensors suddenly lit up with activity. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching fast. They're powering up what look like energy weapons." Jake felt his stomach drop. Humanity's first contact with alien life. And it was going to be a fight. All hands, battle stations. Raise shields and prepare for combat. The Sovereign's shields came online with a low, humming sound. They were different from anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of pure energy fields, they used electromagnetic manipulation to deflect incoming attacks. The technology was based on Earth's understanding of physics, which had developed along different lines than alien science. Lisa, Parker was still trying to send peaceful messages when the first Zephyrian energy beams hit the Sovereign. The ship shook slightly, but the shields held without any trouble. The crew watched in amazement as the alien weapons had almost no effect. "Shields are holding at 98%, reported the engineering officer. "Those energy weapons can't get through." Admiral Kexmore could not believe what he was seeing. His most powerful weapons were barely scratching the alien ship. "Increase power to all weapons. Hit them with everything we have." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with full force. Beams of energy that could destroy a city struck the Sovereign from all directions. The space around the human ship glowed with deadly light. But when the attack ended, the Sovereign was still there. Barely damaged. Jake knew he had to respond. His ship was built for war, and now war had found them. "Ben, target their weapon systems. Use the railguns, minimum power. We don't want to destroy them if we can help it." The Sovereign's kinetic weapons were simple in theory, but devastating in practice. They fired solid metal rods using electromagnetic acceleration, sending them at speeds that were almost impossible to believe. The weapons were quiet, producing no energy signature that alien sensors could easily detect. 10 tungsten rods, each, one the size of a telephone pole, streaked through space toward the Zephyrian fleet. They moved so fast that they were invisible to the naked eye. The first aliens knew of the attack was when projectiles hit their ships. The rods punched through the Zephyrian energy shields as if they were not there. The shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. 3 of the alien ships were destroyed instantly, their hulls torn apart by the impact. Admiral Kexmore watched in horror as half his fleet was crippled in seconds. His sensors could barely track the incoming projectiles. The alien ship had fired weapons that his people had never seen before, weapons that made his advanced technology look useless. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships fall back immediately." The surviving Zephyrian vessels fled as fast as they could, leaving their destroyed comrades behind. Kexmore's mind was racing. He had to warn the Galactic Council about what he had found. This was not just a new ship or a new weapon. This was a completely new type of warfare. On the Sovereign, the crew was quiet. They had won their first battle, but at a cost. Jake looked at the wreckage floating in space and felt sick. Those had been living beings, people with families and dreams, just like humans. Dr. Chun scanned the debris, he ordered. See if there are any survivors. Alex worked his instruments carefully. I'm detecting life signs in 2 of the damaged ships, Captain. Looks like they have emergency life support. Lisa, try to communicate with them, Jake said. Let them know. We want to help. But the surviving Zephyrians were too afraid to listen. They had seen their powerful fleet destroyed by weapons they did not understand. As far as they knew, they had encountered demons from the dead zone. Dr. Patricia Kelly, the ship's psychologist, watched the crew's reactions carefully. Captain, the people are shaken. This isn't how anyone wanted first contact to go. Jake nodded. Sadly, I know, but we had to defend ourselves. Maybe we can do better next time. What he did not know was that there would be many more times. Admiral Kexmore's report would soon reach the Galactic Council, and the 3 great powers would unite in their fear of the unknown threat. The galaxy was about to learn that there was a new player in the game, one that followed completely different rules. The Sovereign continued on its journey, leaving the battlefield behind. But the damage was done. Word of the mysterious ship would spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Soon, every military commander, every politician, every citizen would know that something terrible had emerged from the dead zone. The galaxy watched in terror as Earth's battleship appeared, and the terror was just beginning. The news of Admiral Kexmore's defeat spread through the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within days, every military base, every space station, and every government center knew about the mysterious ship that had destroyed a Zephyrian. Patrol fleet with weapons that seemed to ignore all known laws of physics. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the 3 great powers agreed to work together completely. The threat was too dangerous for any of them to handle alone. Grand Admiral Rex Thule of the Zephyrian Empire stood before a huge map of the galaxy. Red dots showed where the unknown ship had been spotted. There were dozens of them, scattered across multiple star systems. It's moving fast, he said to his officers. Faster than our best ships, and it's hitting our supply bases. The Zephyrians had mobilized 300 of their best warships. It was the largest fleet they had assembled in centuries. But Rex Thule was not confident. The reports from the surviving ships were terrifying. Weapons that fired solid metal at impossible speeds. Shields that stopped energy beams like they were nothing. And worst of all, tactics that no one understood. In the hive sectors, Queen Zarathis was having her own problems. Her bioships were living creatures, bred for war over thousands of years. They could adapt to new threats, evolving new defenses in the middle of battle. But they had never faced anything like this. The enemy does not fight like we do, she told her war forms. They appear, strike, and vanish before we can respond. They target our fuel depots, our communication centers, our repair facilities. They are not trying to win battles. They are trying to win the war. The Hive had deployed their adaptive fleet, ships that could change their structure based on what they encountered. Some grew thicker armor. Others developed new weapons. A few even tried to copy the electromagnetic shields they had observed. But none of it seemed to matter. The enemy always found a way to strike where they were weakest. The Voidborn were perhaps the most disturbed of all. The whisper floated in its energy chamber, its thoughts dark with worry. This enemy thinks differently, it said to the other. Council members. They do not follow the old patterns. They are not trying to conquer territory or capture resources. They are trying to break our ability to fight. The Voidborn had sent their phase ships, vessels that could exist partially outside normal space-time. They were almost impossible to detect or hit. But somehow, the enemy had found a way. Their ships carried sensors that could track gravitational distortions. When a phase ship tried to attack, it found itself targeted by weapons it could not see coming. Meanwhile, the EDF Sovereign continued its campaign across the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison had made a difficult choice. Instead of running home to Earth, he had decided to stay and fight. The alien races had fired first, and they seemed determined to hunt his ship down. If he led them back to Earth, he would be bringing war to his home. "Status report," Jake said as he walked onto the bridge. The ship had been in combat for 3 months now, and the crew was tired, but they were also proud. They had faced the combined might of 3 galactic empires, and not only survived, but won every battle. "We've hit 12 supply bases in the last week," reported Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor. "The enemy is having trouble keeping their fleet supplied. They're pulling ships back to protect their logistics." Ben had proven to be a tactical genius. He had studied the alien technology and found weaknesses that even the aliens did not know they had. The Zephyrian ships were fast but fragile. The Hive bioships were adaptable but predictable. The Voidborn phase ships were sneaky but vulnerable to the right sensors. Dr. Alex Chun looked up from his console. "Captain, I've been analyzing this wreckage from our last battle. These aliens have been fighting the same way for thousands of years. They're not used to adapting to new threats." Alex had become more than just a scientist. He was now the ship's intelligence officer, studying alien technology and finding ways to counter it. His reports had led to new weapons and new tactics that made the Sovereign even more dangerous. "What about casualties?" Jake asked Dr. Nancy White, the ship's doctor. "We've been lucky, Captain. Minor injuries only. The alien weapons can't get through our shields, and our armor stops anything that does get through. But the crew is getting tired. We need to find a way to end this soon." Nancy was right. The crew was holding up well, but they were only human. They needed rest, they needed supplies, and they needed to know that their fight was making a difference. The turning point came when the Sovereign encountered a group of refugee ships fleeing from a Zephyrian attack. The refugees were Mendari, a peaceful race that had been enslaved by the Zephyrians for generations. They were small and weak, with no weapons to defend themselves. Commander Lisa Parker was the first to make contact with them. "Captain, they're asking for help. The Zephyrians are attacking their colony world. They say thousands of their people are dying." Jake looked at the tactical display. The Mendari ships were old and slow, crowded with families trying to escape. The fighting. Behind them, a Zephyrian fleet was closing in for the kill. "This is not our fight," said one of his officers. "We should stay hidden." But Jake remembered why he had joined the military. It was not just to fight wars. It was to protect people who could not protect themselves. "Ben, prepare the weapons. We're going to help them." The battle was over in minutes. The Sovereign appeared between the fleeing refugees and the Zephyrian fleet. The alien ships fired everything they had, but their weapons were useless against human shields. The Sovereign's railguns spoke once, and half the enemy fleet was destroyed. The rest fled in terror, but saving the refugees was only the beginning. Lisa Parker had learned to speak some of the Mendari language, and what she discovered shocked the entire crew. The Mendari were not the only enslaved race. Across the galaxy, dozens of species lived under the control of the 3 great powers. They were kept weak and dependent, never allowed to develop their own technology or govern themselves. "Captain," Lisa said, "we're not just fighting a war. We're fighting for freedom itself." Jake realized that everything had changed. This was no longer about getting his ship home safely. This was about justice. The three great powers had ruled the galaxy through fear and oppression for thousands of years. It was time for that to end. The Sovereign began a new campaign, not just hitting military targets, but liberating enslaved worlds. Each victory inspired more oppressed races to rise up. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. For the first time in millennia, the small and weak were fighting back against their oppressors. The three great powers were terrified. They had built their civilization on the backs of slaves, and now those slaves were rebelling. Even worse, they were being led by a ship that seemed invincible, using technology that made no sense and tactics that were impossible to counter. Grand Admiral Rex Thule, Queen Zara Fis, and the Whisper met in secret to plan their response. They would combine their fleets into one massive armada. Over 2,000 ships, the greatest military force in galactic history. They would corner the enemy ship and destroy it once and for all. What they did not know was that their enemy was not just one ship. Far away, in the small star system that the galaxy had dismissed as empty, Earth was preparing to show the universe what humanity could really do. The rebellion spread like fire across the galaxy. What had started as one human ship fighting for survival had become something much bigger. On 100 worlds, enslaved races rose up against their masters. The Mandari were the first, but they were not alone. The Kithara, who had been forced to mine rare metals for the Hive, sabotaged their own equipment and fled to the stars. The Nexari, whose artistic talents had been stolen by the Voidborn for centuries, destroyed their work and declared themselves free. Even the peaceful Altarians, who had never raised a weapon in anger, began to fight back against their Zephyrian oppressors. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Sovereign, watching reports come in from across the galaxy, each liberated. Worlds sent messages of thanks and promises of support. It was overwhelming and humbling at the same time. "Captain," called out Commander Steve Adams, "we're getting a priority message from the Mendari Council. They want to meet with you." The meeting took place on a small space station that the Mendari had built in secret. Jake brought Lisa Parker and Dr. Chun with him. The Mendari were small, about half the size of humans, with large eyes and gentle faces. Their leader, Elder Thane, greeted the humans with deep respect. "You have given us something we thought was lost forever," Thane said. "Hope. For 1,000 years, we believed that the three great powers could never be defeated. But you have shown us that they can bleed." Jake felt uncomfortable with the praise. "We're just trying to get home, Elder. This war started because they attacked us first." "But you could have fled," Thane replied. "Instead, you chose to fight. Not just for yourselves, but for us. That makes you heroes, whether you want to be or not." Lisa Parker had been studying the galactic situation carefully. "Elder, we need to know about the other enslaved races. How many are there? What are their capabilities?" Thane activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy in detail. Hundreds of star systems were marked in different colors. The red systems are controlled directly by the three powers. The yellow ones are enslaved races like us. The blue ones are independent, but too weak to matter. And the green ones, he paused, those are the systems that have joined the rebellion. Dr. Chun studied the display with interest. The enslaved races outnumber the three powers by at least 10 to 1. "Why have you never united before?" "Because we never had a chance," Thane said sadly. "The three powers made sure we could never communicate with each other. They kept us weak and divided. But now, with your ship as a symbol of hope, everything has changed." The humans learned that the rebellion had grown beyond anything they had imagined. The Sovereign had become a legend, a ghost ship that could appear anywhere and strike at will. Stories of its victories had spread to every corner of the galaxy. Some of the stories were true, others were exaggerated, but all of them gave hope. to the oppressed. But the three great powers were not sitting idle. Grand Admiral Rex Thule had assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. Over 2,000 ships from all three empires working together for the first time in centuries. They had one goal: find and destroy the Sovereign. The combined fleet was a terrifying sight. Zephyrian battlecruisers flew alongside hive bioships and void-borne phase vessels. Despite their differences, the three powers had found unity in their fear of the human ship. "We have them cornered," Rex Thule announced to his commanders. "Our scouts have tracked them to the Kepler system. They're trapped between our fleets and a nebula. There's nowhere left to run." Queen Zarathis felt the excitement of her warrior children. "My bioships are ready. This time, we will adapt faster than they can respond." The whisper floated in its energy chamber, its thoughts focused on the coming battle. "The enemy has been lucky so far, but luck always runs out. Today, we end this threat forever." On the Sovereign, the crew prepared for what might be their last battle. They had fought hundreds of smaller engagements, but this was different. The enemy had brought everything they had. "Captain," reported Ben Taylor, "I count over 2,000 enemy ships. They've got us surrounded on three sides, and the nebula blocks our retreat." Jake looked at the tactical display and felt a chill run down his spine. Even with all their advantages, the Sovereign was still just one ship. They had proven that human technology was superior, but numbers still mattered. "Dr. Chun, is there any way we can use the nebula to our advantage?" Jake asked. Alex studied his sensors carefully. "It's an electromagnetic storm nebula. It'll interfere with their sensors, but it'll hurt us too. And Captain, there's something else. The energy readings are off the charts. If we fire our weapons in there, the feedback could destroy us." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Lisa, send a message to Earth. Tell them where we are and what we're facing. Use the quantum communicator." The quantum communicator was humanity's most advanced technology. It could send messages instantly across any distance, but using it would reveal Earth's location to anyone who was listening. It was a desperate gamble. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "if we do this, they'll know where we came from. They might attack Earth." "I know," Jake replied, "but if we don't do this, the rebellion dies with us. Earth needs to know what we've found out here." The message was sent in a burst of quantum energy that traveled faster than light itself. Within minutes, it reached Earth and the offices of Admiral Karen Lewis, commander of Earth's defense forces. Admiral Lewis read the message with growing amazement and horror. The Sovereign had been fighting an entire galaxy for months. They had started a rebellion that had freed millions of enslaved beings. And now they were about to face the combined might of three galactic empires. "How many ships do we have ready?" she asked her staff. "5 battleships, ma'am." The Sovereign's sister. "Ships. They're not fully tested, but they're ready for combat." Lewis looked at the star charts and made the hardest decision of her career. "Prep them for immediate departure. We're going to war." The 5 Earth battleships were copies of the Sovereign, built with the same technology and crewed by the same type of people. The EDF Defiant, the EDF Guardian, the EDF Liberator, the EDF Avenger, and the EDF Victory. Each one carried 2,000 of Earth's finest men and women as the Earth fleet. Prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral Lewis recorded a message for history. "Today, humanity takes its place among the stars. We go not as conquerors, but as liberators. We fight not for territory or resources, but for the simple idea that all intelligent beings deserve to be free." In the Kepler system, the battle was about to begin. The Sovereign faced impossible odds, but Captain Morrison was not afraid. He had faith in his ship, his crew, and most importantly, in the idea that they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. The three great powers moved in for the kill, confident that their superior numbers would finally end the threat. They had no idea that Earth's full military might was about to reveal itself to the galaxy, not the combined fleet of the three powers spread out in a perfect formation, ready to destroy the single human ship that had caused them so much trouble. But as they prepared to fire, something impossible happened. Space itself seemed to tear open as 5 more human battleships emerged from hyperspace. The galaxy watched in terror as Earth's true power was revealed. The age of human dominance was about to begin. The silence that followed the arrival of the Earth fleet was deafening. For a moment, nobody moved. The combined forces of 3 galactic empires stared at the impossible sight before them. 6 human battleships hung in space like sleeping giants, their dark hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. Grand Admiral Rex Thule was the first to break the silence. "Impossible," he whispered. "The dead zone was empty. We checked. We verified. Nothing could live there." But the evidence was right in front of him. Not one mysterious ship, but 6. Each one was massive, heavily armed, and radiating the same strange energy signature that had haunted his nightmares for months. Queen Zaravis felt the fear of her children like a physical pain. Through the hive mind, she experienced the terror of 2,000 bioship crews all at once. They were hiding, she said in disbelief. An entire civilization was hiding in the dead zone. The whisper floated in its energy chamber, its thoughts racing. "We have made a terrible mistake. We thought we were hunting one ship. Instead, we have awakened something that was sleeping." On the bridge of the Sovereign, Captain Jake Morrison felt a mixture of relief and pride as he watched his fellow Earthships take their positions. The cavalry had arrived, and it was beautiful. "All Earthships, this is Captain Morrison," he said over the communication channel. "Welcome to the party." Admiral Karen Lewis responded from the bridge of the EDF Defiant. "Good to see you, Jake. We got your message. Looks like you've been busy." The 6 human ships moved into formation with a precision that amazed the watching aliens. They had trained together, fought together, and now they would make history together. Each ship carried the hopes and dreams of the human race. "Admiral," Jake said, "these aliens fired first. But they're not evil, just afraid. Maybe we can find a way to end this without more killing." Karen Lewis had read Jake's reports during the journey from Earth. She knew about the enslaved races, the rebellion, and the hope that humanity had brought to the galaxy. "We'll try diplomacy first," she agreed. "But if they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." The communication channels crackled with activity as the human fleet sent messages to the combined alien armada. Lisa Parker had worked with the ship's computer to translate the messages into dozens of alien languages. "This is Admiral Karen Lewis of the Earth Defense Force," the message began. "We came here in peace, seeking only to explore and learn. Your forces attacked us without provocation. We defended ourselves, as any free people would. But we do not seek conquest. We seek justice." The message continued. "We have learned of the oppression that has ruled this galaxy for thousands of years. We have seen how you treat the smaller races, how you keep them weak and enslaved. This ends now. We offer you a choice: surrender, bend. Help us build a better galaxy, or face the consequences of your actions." Grand Admiral Rex Thule laughed when he heard the message. 6 ships? They have 6 ships, and they're demanding our surrender? Have they lost their minds? But his laughter died when he looked at the tactical display. The human ships were different from anything he had ever seen. They were not just weapons of war. They were symbols of a completely different way of thinking. About conflict, the Zephyrian fleet outnumbered the humans by more than 300 to 1. But Rex Thule remembered the reports from every battle with a single human ship. Superior numbers had meant nothing. Advanced technology had been useless. Thousands of years of military experience had counted for nothing against human tactics. All ships, prepare for battle, he ordered, but his voice lacked confidence. The battle began when a nervous hive bioship fired the first shot. The energy beam struck the EDF Guardian's shields and scattered harmlessly into space. It was like watching a child throw a rock at a fortress. What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a demonstration of what happened when a warlike species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of combat met opponents who had grown comfortable with easy victories. The 6 human ships moved like dancers, each one covering the others, their weapons firing in perfect coordination. The kinetic railguns spoke with voices of thunder, sending tungsten rods through space at impossible speeds. Where they struck, alien ships simply ceased to exist, but the humans did more than just destroy. They used electromagnetic pulse weapons to disable enemy ships without killing the crews. They targeted weapon systems and engines, leaving alien vessels helpless but intact. When possible, they captured rather than killed. Admiral Lewis had studied the reports from the Sovereign's months of fighting. She knew that many of the alien crews were not evil, just following orders from leaders who had never been challenged. Disable when possible, she ordered. Destroy only when necessary. The combined alien fleet tried to use their numbers to overwhelm the humans, but it was useless. Human technology was simply too advanced. The electromagnetic shields stopped. Energy weapons cold. The thick armor plates absorbed impacts that would have destroyed any other ship. And the weapon systems were accurate, beyond belief. Dr. Alex Chun, now aboard the EDF Guardian as part of Admiral Lewis's staff, watched the battle with scientific fascination. Admiral, their technology is thousands of years old, but barely evolved. They've been fighting the same way for so long that they can't adapt to new threats. The turning point came when the Void-born phase ships tried their signature move, shifting partially out of normal space to attack from an unexpected angle. But the human ships tracked them easily using gravitational sensors that the aliens didn't know existed. Phase ships detected, reported the tactical officer on the EDF Liberator, firing gravitational disruption charges. The special weapons created localized space-time distortions that forced the Void-born ships back into normal space, where human railguns were waiting for them. 3 phase ships were destroyed in seconds, and the rest fled in terror. Queen Zarathus watched her bioships die and felt each death like a wound in her own heart. Her children were trying to adapt, growing new defenses and weapons, but the humans adapted faster. They learned from each exchange and modified their tactics in real time. My children cannot match them, she admitted to herself. They think like we do, but faster and better. The battle was over in less than an hour. Of the 2,000 ships that had come to destroy the Sovereign, fewer than half remained. The rest were either destroyed or disabled, drifting helplessly in space. The most powerful military force in galactic history had been defeated by 6 human ships. Grand Admiral Rex Thule stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His mighty fleet was broken, scattered across the Kepler system like toys thrown by an angry child. He had one choice left, and it was the hardest thing he had ever done. All remaining ships, cease fire, he ordered. This is Grand Admiral Rex Thule of the Zephyrian Empire. We surrender. The words echoed across the communication channels, heard by every surviving alien crew. The great powers that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years had been brought to their knees in a single battle. Admiral Lewis accepted the surrender with dignity. We will treat your crews with honor, she promised. But the old ways are over. This galaxy will be governed by justice, not fear. The aftermath of the battle changed everything. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On 1,000 worlds, enslaved races celebrated their freedom. The rebellion that had started with one ship became a revolution that would reshape galactic civilization. The Galactic Council was dissolved and replaced with the Galactic Liberation Council. Every intelligent species, no matter how small or weak, was given a voice in the new government. The humans took no special position for themselves, serving only as protectors and peacekeepers. Captain Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral, given command of the Liberation Fleet. His job was to visit every world where oppression still existed and offer the inhabitants a choice: join the new galactic community as free beings, or face the consequences of their actions. Most chose freedom. The 3 former great powers were not destroyed, but they were changed. Their military forces were reduced to self-defense only. Their enslaved populations were freed and given the technology to govern themselves. Some adapted to the new reality and became productive members of the galactic community. Others retreated to their home systems, and Salt. Earth became the center of a new golden age. Human technology and human ideals spread across the galaxy, but not through conquest. They spread because they worked. The idea that all intelligent beings deserved freedom and dignity was not just noble, it was practical. Free societies were more creative, more productive, and happier than enslaved ones. Admiral Karen Lewis established Earth's first interstellar embassy on the former Galactic Council station. She looked out at the stars and marveled at how much had changed in such a short time. The galaxy watched in terror as Earth's battleship appeared, she said to her aide. But now they watch in wonder as we keep our promise to defend the innocent and protect the free. The aide, a young Mendari named Kira, who had joined the human diplomatic corps, smiled. "Do you think it will last, Admiral? This peace we've built?" Karen considered the question carefully. "Nothing lasts forever, Kira. But we've given the galaxy something it never had before: hope. And hope is the strongest force I